today, so
We'll get there.
started broadcasting.
All right, and we're live.
It says you are live, yeah.
All right, hello. This is There Is No Book Club, and I am Amber here with Tracy and Christian. And today we are going to talk about The Poppy War by rfkuang. And this is the first of a trilogy. And I think before we get into anything spoilery, we're going to talk a little bit about the books without getting into those like deeper topic discussions. And then when we get to spoilery stuff, we'll throw up a banner and you can hop out if you don't want to hear any spoilers. But I think the first thing that I want to talk about is just some of the themes of the book, things that maybe that stood out to us or that we enjoyed, or maybe what people can expect when they get the book. Anyone?
I'm so sorry. um, I think for me the standout, I this is always my standout thing. The standout thing was the history part of it. Like the author actually used specific historical moments and prejudices to build certain pieces of the story itself, and I love anything that can kind of bring awareness to something that's happened without feeling like you're being like preached at. And like this is like eat it up fiction. It reads so fast, so you don't really feel necessarily like you're getting a history lesson with a story on top of it. You're getting a story, and it's really good, but it's also like truly tragic that what is written about in this fictional book is based on nonfiction. And the author even says that she had to make up very little about some of the more horrific scenes in the book because they actually happened in real life. So that, of course, set me on like a rabbit hole of history diving, and anything that can send me off on that is like two
do
thumbs
you
up.
Do you think that this book would be a good fit for people who don't like reading history? Do you think it's
Yes.
accessible enough?
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the powerful things about it. It's like kind of multi-layered. You're not going to read it and immediately think, "Oh, it's a history lesson." You're going to read it and be like, "Oh my god, what happens next?" That's how I was.
Christian's nodding in agreement.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, what's funny is I knew about the events before reading the book, and I
Uh-huh.
forgot just about it because it's so horrific. I guess I compartmentalized it. So I
Yeah.
remember late nights in high school being on Wikipedia and just going down those rabbit holes. And this was one of the things that I learned about was the specific events that Kuang called back in the book.
Mhm.
And I really like how she has a big suggested reading after you
Mhm.
finish the book. And I was like, okay, I know where I'm going next.
Yep.
So,
Did
Yep.
you did either of you guys read the suggested reading afterwards? Or is
Um
that something like on your to
it's
be
on
read list?
Yeah,
yeah.
it's on my to-do list because it's just so like the book that I really would like to read is The Rape of Nanking by Iris Chang. And I watched a couple different documentaries about the rape of Nanking, and I like did what I could to learn what I could about her, and I kind of had to step away from it. It was just too much. It was too much heartbreak to like want to take on pardon me, I'm sorry, to want to take on another emotional burden like that right away, because in fiction it's heartbreaking. It's even more so when it's real lives that you're reading about. And this topic weighed so heavily on Iris Chang. She was institutionalized like by choice, and she committed suicide. that's how bad this stuff was. Like, that's how hard it hit her. So I was like, I'll read that later. Like, and I want to read about the comfort women, but again, not a light topic, not something I feel quite emotionally ready to take on. So it's like in my to read list, but I think I need to feel fortified before I can
Yeah.
take that on. Yeah. Yeah.
I think, well, when we get to the more spoiler section, we can talk about that a little bit more, I think, because it's like a big, big element of the story, I feel like, and her being able to put that in her work in a way
Mhm.
that doesn't feel like you're reading a history book is really commendable. But
Mhm.
to go on a more happy note, like
Please.
there were things that I really loved about how almost lighthearted some of the dialogue was and how
Mhm.
it felt like someone from my generation would talk. You
Mhm.
know, like it
Yeah.
didn't feel like opening up a science fiction or fantasy book where there's really out there names and things where you're kind of like scratching your head, where more people who are maybe more into like Tolkien or some
Mhm.
more like classic sci-fi might kind of be like, well, that's my thing. And if you're looking for that in the Poppy War,
Mhm.
yeah, it's taking place in a fantasy location, but it's not kind of like browbeating you into this strictly like one direction of fantasy where I almost felt like I could be watching cartoons and these characters would be like, this is how like young women or kids
Mhm.
would be speaking to each other. And I felt like it really pulled me in and made it relatable and accessible and not
Mhm.
too like heavy, even though there are elements that are very heavy. And I think that was really fun. Like
Mhm.
it speaks to, I think, maybe younger readers.
Mhm.
But I mean, I'm not a young kid, so I guess like it spoke to me too.
Mhm. Yeah. I did have that concern that it was gonna be like a young adult novel, and then it, like,
No, nope,
definitely
nope.
was not. Mm-mm.
Well, yeah, like
No.
it starts out with that very tropey, like young orphan goes to prestigious school with mystery elements in the background, maybe magic, maybe something. We don't know yet, but there's a
Mhm.
story here. And then you get there, and then you get past like part one, and you're like,
Mhm.
oh, okay. We're not staying there.
Mm.
Yeah, because when I began reading it, I was like, oh man, this is going to be one of those, Harry Potter books or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'd heard that it starts like Harry Potter and ends with like Schindler's List, basically,
Mhm.
movie
Hmm.
wise. And I was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for the heartbreak.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things about the book is I'm a huge fan of the underdog trope. I
Mhm.
love when characters make it beyond obstacles against all odds. And just watching that slowly come through as Ren just succeeds and has to deal with I guess, uh, unthought of consequences or anything like that, where she thinks she is doing the best thing that she can do,
Mhm.
and then she has to, it's like a step, just gotta react. And
Mhm.
I loved all that, and I loved the, I guess, the mood of the book, where at first it starts like, oh boy, I'm gonna go to school and I'm gonna be the best ever, and then
Yeah.
everyone's just beating her down.
Yes.
Mhm. Yep.
Just seeing her get through it was really nice. So I
Yeah.
like good success. So
Yeah, I mean, she has a lot of rage, but
Mhm.
righteous rage. I mean, she
Mhm.
has just been beat down by life and she makes it through mostly with just sheer determination and grit and
Mhm.
anger. Like, that's, I feel like, what's pushing her along. And she's pretty sympathetic. Like, as a reader, I'm, witnessing all of these things happen to her. So I'm immediately, like you said, she's an underdog where I'm like, just you get them, Ren. Like, you do what you have to do. And as things go on, you're like, oh, okay. Like, all right, it's getting dark. Okay.
She very much reminds me of a Tao from Rage of Dragons. She is just almost the same. Just anger, just fueling her, uh, I guess, skill leveling up. So
Yeah.
I thought of
There's
that book a lot while reading it.
there's those scenes where she's studying and she's
Mm.
basically not sleeping at
Mhm.
all. And I guess this is like a little background part of the book, but like she's an orphan, and the only way out of her situation that is not good is getting into this prestigious military school because it's
Mhm.
free. So she's working at the same time and dripping hot candle wax on herself, burning herself to make sure that she can stay awake to study, hours and hours every night. And that was like maybe the first like warning where I was like, okay, like she is just anything that it takes, like any
Mhm.
cost, she will do it. And
Yep.
things like that get repeated throughout the book very often.
Mhm.
Okay, let's see here. Were there anything else like likes or maybe things that just kind of stuck out to you that
I liked the sense of humor frequently throughout the book. Like, it sometimes feels a little inappropriate, and I think that's why I like it. Like, sometimes it's humor to diffuse a situation or to, like, make somebody feel a little bit better or whatever, but, like, it's good. I love the use of cussing.
yes, I was just gonna say that where they're like tiger tits.
I like
Like,
that.
I
I
thought that was
even
really good.
I even just loved, like, the occasional, "What the fuck?" Like, loved it, loved it.
Mhm.
Like, it made it feel really modern and accessible, even though it was in a completely different location than, like, what I am personally familiar with. Like, I don't know, there was something about it that really, like, maybe it's because I am a constant cusser. Um, so I appreciated that. Um, there was something else that I was just thinking of too. Oh, the fact that characters are not who they always seem to be. Like,
A
the
little
develop
mystery shrouded in them, or
yes. Like, there's room throughout the entire novel for character development, and I like that. Like, you aren't just stuck, like, this person is this trope, and this is what they will be for the rest of the book, like, and you're not sure who it's gonna be, but it's always just like, "Oh," Like, I loved that part. Loved that part.
there was yeah, there the thing about Rin is like she's given for the most part some really great mentors along
Mhm.
the way.
Mhm.
And I really enjoyed those relationships where it's usually her with a person that's much older than herself, like
Mhm.
her tutor
Mhm.
Ferric. And then of course, like once she's later on, there's more. But like when we start out, it was kind of nice having like, okay, like she's in a bad situation, but there are people kind of there and like good, I don't want to say good role models, but like she has like even if it's just the tiniest bit of support, like she is almost a little bit of like an Egwene where like she is a really like that kind of like almost straight
Mhm.
A student, but where in Rin's case, she she doesn't so much always do what the tutor wants, but she's working like in her own way to get ahead no matter what
Mhm.
at all costs. So
Mhm.
maybe that was kind of a little bit like Egwene, but um it's just a fun dynamic. And I really liked how, like, right at the beginning of the book, I was like, oh, I really like this tutor favorite guy. Like, I hope he comes back. Like, I hope I see more of him. And then he was just like gone. I'm like, okay, well, and then on to the next, you know?
I love
So,
the slow build of the magic, because I was expecting like the prologue to Wheel of Time was like, here's 40 terms,
yeah.
and you're not gonna learn what they are until like 14 books from now. And I'm like, okay. But like in this book, it's like little tiny hints every like 100 pages, and it's not for a while we get anything confirmed. It's like, oh, it's these weird shaman people. They're not actually doing anything,
Right.
and it's like all these little teases, and then resume at the spoiler section.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
I
that slow build.
I wrote that down too, that I appreciated that it's not a blatantly fantasy book. Like
Hmm.
I think if you're like somebody who just likes a good story, like you'll like this. I think it kind of like goes beyond just specific genre types. And I think this is a good example of being able to like bring a lot of people in under like a discussion for a book like this. It's just so good. It's so good.
This needs
Another,
to be part of the high school reading like book list, like summer
Ooh.
reading.
Oh my
This would be
God.
the perfect one.
this would be
Yeah.
really good. Yeah.
I wish
Mhm.
I had this book in high school during the summer
Right.
reading.
Yeah.
Right.
That would have
Especially
been
too,
the
like,
best.
it's fun to talk about now because the author is releasing a new book in August. And if you want to read that with us, please do, because we're all like
So
really excited for
excited.
Babel. But something that Christian had said, like how little hints are dropped throughout the story to kind of build on that. That was something that I think was done really well also, but it was done in the perfect way to where I haven't read book 2 yet
Mhm.
of the series, but I feel like there has been enough like mysteries kind of like dropped in and hints along the way where book 2 is either going to be like fulfilling all of the things that I'm curious about. And I think like I'm hoping that's what will happen. But by the time I get to the end of this book, I'm like, okay, there's a lot here left to be said and done. And it almost feels like this first book could have been a trilogy in itself,
Mhm.
the way that
Mhm.
it's divided into the different parts. But that is also like done really well because it is not easy to put that much information and go like that much change in time and distance and places within one book and it not feel almost jarring. But the way this is done, it's like any moment you feel like you're getting to a point where you're like, okay, like now things have really escalated. And then she's kind of just like seamlessly like transitioning into the next part where time has passed. And there are some fun little transitions in there where I'm like, I'm not getting bored. Like, I like this. I'm not getting bored at all.
Mhm. Nope.
Which for her first book, like, that's amazing.
Mhm.
Okay, so should we talk characters? Yeah.
I love
Is,
talking characters. Yeah.
is there anyone that you want to start out with, Tracy?
I'm not going to suggest Sunzi the piglet. We can save the best for last.
Yeah.
um, hmm. I really like Kate.
I liked him too. Is it
Mm-hmm.
Katai? Katai? I think I wrote it as Katai. Or
Kate.
I listened to a podcast, I think, and she was on it and she said Katai.
Okay.
But he's great. He's so great.
Ridiculously charming without trying to be. Like, I was like, You're my guy." You know, like so many of the things that he liked to study and whatnot, I was like, yeah, me too. I just enjoyed him.
So I'm not gonna, this isn't really a spoiler, I don't think, or should we throw up the spoilers now?
You wanna?
I feel like we might need to.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Christian, are you ready?
Pow!
Pow.
Spoiler warning! All right.
Okay. Considering Katai's background, okay, so at this point, Rin has background story. She is about to be forced into a marriage she does not want to be in. She wins a spot at this prestigious military university school based on this test that she like aces basically.
Mhm.
And so now she's at Senegard, and this is the city where this military school is located. And she finds herself among, I don't want to say like a lot of snooty, almost like blue blooded,
Mm.
like wealthy, well off students.
Mhm.
And Katai is one of them, but he's not like the rest.
Mhm.
He's really relatable and kind of like just like her good friend when no one else is. And I think he has, what is it, eidentic memory, where he basically, it's like a photographic memory.
Mhm.
So he doesn't really have to study or do anything. He's just always that good.
Mhm.
And they kind of hit it off, and like it's a really cute friendship.
Mhm.
But as like the story goes on, I kind of got a little bit annoyed with Katai or Kate. Like
Yeah?
just a little bit, because he's like not believing in the gods and
Mhm.
shamanism, and it's like, my guy, like you just watched Rin like burn people with
Mhm.
fire that came out of her body, kind of. So like what do you think happened? And he's kind of he's more of like a, I want to say, I don't know if realist is the right word, but I don't know.
I'd say he's pragmatic.
Yeah, pragmatic is better, I
Yeah,
think.
because he's not going to readily believe something just because somebody has told him that this is what it is. Like, he wants to be able to, like, prove it if it's possible or see it for his own or with
Yeah,
his own
like the
eyes in some
scientific
way.
method.
Yeah, yeah, he's very, like, I don't yeah, I would realistic. I love the vacation time that Katai and Rin have together. Like, how fucking cute is that?
That's one of my favorite transitions, is the transition from the puppet
Mhm.
show, where we get like a lore dump, and it's
Mhm.
from them sneaking into like a children's puppet show. Or is it
Yeah.
like shadow puppets or something? I don't remember, but it was essentially like them learning through, or me learning through the author, like all of this
Mhm.
information that became important later on. And I thought
Mhm.
that was a really cool little like segment of that vacation time. It was
Mhm.
really cute.
Yeah. And really seeing, like, the luxury available,
The
right?
food. Well, yeah, like Rin's an orphan. Katai has very wealthy parents, and Ren is experiencing all of this for the first time, and it's just like, like, Ren, what do you want to eat? You can have
Mhm.
anything you want. My family's chef is really great. And she's like, I don't know what to say. Like, what do I like to eat? She's
Mhm.
used to eating like the food at the military academy, and it's like, I mean, it's not slop, but it's kind of slop.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm. I think too with, I keep saying Kate now. I can't remember if it's Kate or Kate.
I wrote down Katai because that's what you said.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I think with his character too, there was that really funny moment where they're trying to usher everyone out of the city and get like, so they're under attack. And there's that moment with the teapots. Do you remember this?
Yes!
So I think it's like a
We're at
mayor.
war. Don't pack your fucking teapots.
Yeah, and then he goes ballistic and smashes them all out on the street in front of everyone. But the city is about to be under attack, and they're trying to get this bureaucrat out of the city.
Mhm.
and he's like packing up all of his, I don't know, special belongings. And
Mhm.
yeah, I thought that was a really funny, cute moment.
Mhm. Yeah. Christian, what about you?
Oh yeah, I definitely loved when they were on vacation, and she was as excited about the puppet show as all the kids there,
Mhm.
because she never saw that. She didn't really know of these events because she didn't
Mhm.
have the upbringing that all the other students had, where they were drilled with history, military strategy, and all these different things. And
Mhm.
she's like, I never heard of any of this. I don't know if any of it's true or not, and no one will tell me because I'm just this out of town, southern peasant, according to
Mhm.
them.
Mm.
And I love how friendly Kate was and just how welcoming he was.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, how often he was like her sole support and friend at so many times during her first year. Like when she's in the trials and fighting, and whoever it is that she defeats the first time and everybody is silent, but Katai starts clapping and he's the only one.
Oh, that was so sweet. Oh, that makes your heart grow for him, like him being like,
Mhm.
"Good job, friends."
Yeah, yeah, like, he just doesn't really give a fuck what anybody else in
It's
their
also
class
because
thinks about it.
it's also because he doesn't have any competition really. Like no one's as
Mhm.
smart as him.
Mm-mm.
He doesn't have to play the school politics because he's just that
He
smart.
knows. Yeah, he
Yeah.
knows he's moving on to the next step. Whatever the next step is, he's gonna be
Yeah.
there. Yeah,
Yeah. I think
that's a good point.
all of the characters that are introduced during her time in Synagard were really interesting, but for the most part, like this might be one of it's not a real like heavy critique, but
Mhm.
the majority of all the students kind of feel similar in the way that like they've had similar upbringings and they're just in a different class than Rin. And maybe some of them could have been fleshed out a little bit more. Like I would have loved to get more from Venka, I think,
Mhm.
because she was one of those characters where I was like, she's pretty like she's unlikable, but she's
Mhm.
supposed to be unlikable. And
Mhm.
then it's not until later, like you're given a reason to feel for her. And it could have been maybe a little bit more diverse, but there was one student that we didn't really realize was kind of so similar to Rin until later on, and that was Alton.
Mhm.
But he was kind of like this mysterious, perfect warrior student that
Mhm.
all the younger classmates looked up to. And we can talk about him later because, woof,
Mhm. What a guy. What a
what a
guy.
guy. I definitely like, let's skip back to Venka too, because I just feel like that's such a heavy moment that we're going to talk about anyways when we get to that part. I say that
Mhm.
part because, oh, that's a really rough spot. But I do want to talk about Neza,
Mm.
and I loved his character. I thought he was a perfect kind of like school nemesis. And it
Mhm.
was just really good, even though like it's so tropey. It was like I couldn't get enough of it. I loved every
Mhm.
second of it.
could easily be a Malfoy.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. I he's the character that I like having seen the change in. Like, you're like, "Ah, twerpy little rich kid." Like, thinks he
All the
knows
teachers love him.
everything. Yeah, like, I love it every time Rin knocks him down a peg, like,
Well,
yeah.
he's he's brought in so perfectly because he goes in and not only is he hurtful to Rin, but he's disrespectful of Tutor Feyrick. And I was like, Tutor
Mhm.
Feyrick is my guy. And
Yeah.
if you come in here talking smack about Tutor Feyrick, you've already made me an enemy. And it was so perfect.
Yeah, even after, like, Rin hits him,
She
like the
punches him in the
apprentice.
nose, doesn't she?
Yeah, the apprentice that comes to like separate them, like when he's trying to get like the two sides of the story. Ren's like, he was bad mouthing my tutor, and the apprentice was like, oh, well, that's an entirely different story. Like, it is taboo to like speak against a tutor. So, lesson number one. Now you guys
Right.
behave.
Lesson
So
number
like
2.
she's immediately humiliated him before they even had a first day of class. Like, you're kind of set up to feel like this they're going to be like the contentious competition. And so often like what happens between the two of them directs how everyone else in their class treats Rin too. Like, if Neja decides he doesn't like you, everyone doesn't like you except Katai, because he's the best. He's the best.
I think with Neza, when you said that she humiliated him,
Mm-hmm.
so Neza's family is the Dragon Warlord's family.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
his father is the Dragon Warlord. So I'm assuming like he has a lot of pressure put on him from his parents to be like
Mm-hmm.
the top of the class, and he probably came in there thinking like, like the
It
story
was
like,
going to be easy.
or like the way he treated Ren was almost like the story, like if people go to prison, like you have to like beat the biggest, baddest dude so that no one messes with you. And so he probably showed up thinking like, okay, like I'm gonna have this attitude because he treats
Mm-hmm.
like anyone who's better than him at any of the classes like badly. But he probably saw Ren and was like, okay, like I have to somehow make up for this. Like I have to show her and I have to show everyone because everything is riding on this, and
Mm-hmm.
he's fragile, like very fragile,
Mm-hmm.
despite wanting to seem kind of like a tough guy,
Mm-hmm.
like maybe a little
It's a
emotionally fragile.
facade. It's a
Yeah,
facade.
yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
I couldn't stand his teacher at all. I thought he
June.
was going to put
Are you
Neja in his place.
are you thinking
And
of June or
yeah, I think so. The mean
okay?
one who
Yeah.
puts down Ren like immediately. I
Mm-hmm.
thought he was going to be the one who was going to be. Actually, she has something in her, and
Yeah.
it wasn't him at all. And we
No.
didn't get a teacher like that at all for a while. And
No.
so I got whiplash. I was like, oh, I know this trope. Someone's gonna it's gonna be this guy. You got promised, kid.
Yeah.
And it wasn't him.
No.
Yeah, in fact, like he's so mean to her, he even shocks Venka. Like, yeah, he says, I hate students like you. Like, he's brutal to her. He's brutal. And
And
it's
it's
like, you
not,
can't fight anymore in here. You can't practice anymore in here. I'm not going to teach you anymore. And she's like, well, what do I do? That's the
yeah. So, like, backstory on that is for them to go forward and actually like have like a place in the school, they have to get through a bunch of different trials and tests. And if they can't make it past one, then they're pretty much out. So you have to at least place somewhere, not at the bottom in any of these classes. And it's cutthroat. Like all of these kids are fighting to just be the first or not be the last.
Mm-hmm.
And June's class was combat, am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when she gets kicked out of June's class, it basically means that she has no training combat, and they have to do like an actual combat at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the semester to like place in this rank, I guess. So
Mm-hmm.
like she gets kicked from his class, she's out. She knows it. There's nothing she can do. And it's not he didn't kick her out because I think so much that she was a troublemaker, but he was completely classist against her and prejudiced and racist against her because she's from Rooster Province. She has darker skin. She's a peasant.
Mhm.
And these are all the things that he says to her as
Yep.
he's throwing her out the door. And then she's just lost. You know, she's got
Mhm.
no one
Yep.
until
Oh, here, I found it. Where he says all of the things about her. Oh, this was my favorite part of the tirade against her. That boy, June jerked his thumb in the direction Neza had gone, may be an ass, but he has the makings of commander in him. You, on the other hand, are just peasant trash. Pretty much sums up how that fight went. That's not a pep talk, right?
no, no.
That's not the "you're the chosen one" speech we were hoping for.
No, it was not. No.
Oh man, like when I read that, I was like, poor Rin. Yeah. And she's like trying so hard not to cry. Like, she just doesn't want to cry in front of everybody. Mm.
I really liked the different, I want to say professors, but like her different teachers in this
Mhm.
school because, you know, there's one for medicine, there's one for combat, there's one for
Mhm.
strategy, and then there's one for lore. And I did really enjoy all of the strategy talk, like
Mhm.
the military
Mhm.
strategy parts of the story coming from pretty much like while she's in this class and they're learning things. And
Mhm.
I thought that was just, I mean, it was so interesting. And I loved like the discussions that they were having in class. And I mean, it could have gone on with that way longer than it needed to. And I would have eaten it all up. I would have been like, yeah,
Right.
more, let's go. Yes, please. It was
Yep.
really fun.
Mhm. The time at the academy seemed way too short. I was not expecting it to end so quickly. Like, dun, 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 we get through our first year. Happy vacation time. Ah, what the hell? Like,
It could have ended, like, I think the book almost could have ended when we get to the part where it's quoted like Rincho's lore.
mhm,
Like, that was
mhm,
it. Like, it could
mhm.
have that could have been it for book 1, and when it moves on, I'm like, "Whoa," like, "Okay," like, we're
Yay, there's
yeah. Yeah.
more.
I thought the whole book was going to be at the academy. That's why, like, I
Yeah.
was buckled in, and then we started getting the application of all the lessons, and I love that the setup of them learning all these things and having to practice it in the second half of the book. I guess it's about the first half is the
Yeah.
academy. But I was like, yes, let's see some application of skills and knowledge.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that. I
Yeah.
read fantasy for it.
I love a good battle scene.
Can we talk about Chiang?
My favorite character.
Is
Me
he?
me
Okay,
too. He
tell
was
me
my
why.
favorite
I
as
love him.
well. Yeah, tell us
Yeah,
what.
tell us, Christian, why? Why is he your
Oh,
favorite?
I love the mystery. I love all of the weird dialogue he keeps giving, and he won't expand on it. I love how I think it's Katai when she's talking to him, and she compares him to Jiang, and is like, "Oh my gosh, she's just telling me stuff," and I'm so used to having to question out every single detail from
Mhm.
Jiang, and she's like, "Oh, this is so much easier," but I think she learned a lot more from Jiang. But to go back to
Mhm.
him, I love the weird, I guess, quirks of him hanging upside down in the tree is like his first introduction
Yeah.
Mhm.
in the poppy garden or whatever that
Yeah.
no students are allowed to go to, and
Mhm.
that's the only place you can find him to like
Just
train. And
hanging out in the drug garden.
yeah,
That's where I would be.
yeah,
Mhm.
and
Sounds
I
like
love
fun.
and I love the all the mystical aspects of him.
Mhm.
And he's kind of our, I guess, gateway into the more magical parts of the
Yes.
series.
That's
I mean, he
exactly
showed,
what I was just thinking.
when he shows up and he starts talking, I'm like, yes, this is when the fantasy aspect comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought I was like dreaming for the first half of the book before we see all of that. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, wait, are people just saying it's fantasy because it's not like our names of like
Yes.
settings and stuff?
Mhm.
Like, is that why it's fantasy? Oh wait, never mind. She just turned into the Human Torch from like
Yeah.
Fantastic Boy. Like, okay, that's fantasy.
Jiang just became a literal gateway for
Mhm.
dark, creepy things. What the hell? Bring
Gate-
it!
The gatekeeper gateway.
Right? Good
I was so
call.
happy when he did that. I was like, yes, bring chaos to the land. I want to see that.
Mhm.
That was that was so good. But I mean, too, I think it was after poor Sunzi the Piglet's storyline. R.I.P. Sunzi. But
Second best character.
yeah, I'm not sure if it was after that or maybe a little bit later, but I think that they were training and doing something, and she was able to like block him with like her using like his chi and like guiding him away. And she says that she could see like ripples moving, and she felt like I can't remember exactly what it was, but something very like magical just happened.
Mhm.
And you get that first like, oh, okay, like here we go, like now something's happening, now we're getting
Mhm.
to like the magic part. And he's so good, and he's humorous, like in a kind of like gross drunk man way, like he's kind of like burping around and kind of
He
like
sings lute
staggering.
songs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked I think who is it? Who's combat? Is that June? And they were doing a combat lesson, and Jiang was like in the same space that they were in, and he like June is like, just get out. Why are you even here? And Jiang's
Mhm.
like, you're not using this tree. Like,
Yeah.
and I think like the word petulant was used to describe the way that he was talking, and it just made me see like this man child, like oldish man child wandering around. I just love him. I love all of his like little quirky weird things, and I love that he's the guy who's like, Rin, you're the one. Like we
Mhm.
get crazy lore master Jiang being like, I shall steer you. He even says no one picked up on things as fast as you have, even Alton. And I was like,
I love that
Rin!
part. I think he picks her up and swings her around like a child. He's
Yes.
like, "You girl, my darling girl, you darling beautiful girl." And I'm like, "Oh." But
She needed that.
I don't know. Did she? I mean,
I
she's
think so. A big hug? Yeah, Rin needed a big hug. She'd
but
been through a lot.
she I think quoting Rin, she says something about needing validation,
Yeah.
like deeply, like desperately. And it's
Mhm.
almost like at
Like she
some
almost
point,
feels addicted to it.
yeah. And so I'm
Mhm.
like, uh-oh, like this could be bad or good. Like I was very like,
Like, is he feeding her addiction?
right? Yeah. And
Mhm.
how is she going to go on if she loses that? And that's what I was afraid of, because it's like what happens to Ren emotionally after something like that is pulled away and she has nothing.
Mhm.
And I mean, probably a good topic question for later, because yeah, she
Mhm.
too much rage and Ren becomes what she becomes, I guess.
Mm.
It was really scary when he left, like momentarily during the story, because
Mhm.
she said something like, "Oh, I want to be the good soldier," or whatever. And he's
Mhm.
like completely unhappy that she said that, and I was like, "Oh no, like that's it." She's like, he's done with her, but
Mhm.
she brings him back, and I was so happy that she
Mhm.
was able to do that.
Mhm.
Do we want to talk about that moment? What brings him back? That fight scene with her
Sure.
and Lisa? Because that was like, I had to go back and reread that before
So
yesterday. I had to reread
good.
it. But
Ugh.
yeah, this is happening at the trials
Yep.
for like the placement,
Mhm.
and Rin has fought her way up the ranking list.
Mhm.
So it's it's like the very stereotypical like sports. There's, like it all comes down to this head-to-head combat between Rin and Neza, and they have both beaten everyone in their bracket, but they haven't faced each other yet. But because they've always been fighting at the same time up the ranks, they haven't yet got to watch each other fight. So they're
Mhm.
both kind of, it's like double blind. Like they both go in not really knowing what to expect, only knowing what other people have said.
Mhm.
And everything that Rin is being told is like, you can't fight him. He's basically just almost killed this kid and he fights
Mhm.
dirty, and he has no,
Control. He's like rage fighting.
yeah, but he's like maiming people on purpose. Like
Mm.
just, yeah, like, oof. And she had beaten Vanka, and that was such a good moment too, because Vanka has just been such a snot to her, like worse than a snot. She's just been wicked,
Mhm.
and she's kind of like best friends with Neza. So since Neza hates Ren, Vanka has to hate Ren.
Mhm.
And the funny thing with that fight was, I don't remember if she kicks her or punches her, but
He punches her.
she draws blood,
Mhm.
and the way that it was described is like Vanka had never seen blood before,
She'd
because
never
even
fought with an injury.
in her combat class,
Yep.
everyone was afraid to touch her because of who her family was.
Mhm.
And so like even the teachers like wouldn't train hard with
Mhm.
her because they didn't want to anger whoever very important people her family is.
Ren's not afraid to do that.
No,
And
no,
Ren kind of like seemed like she relished the idea, like, oh, I mean, I was gonna fight her anyway, but now it's like extra
now
satisfying.
it's
Like,
fun. Yeah. Did you like this part, Christian? Did you like the martial arts aspect as much as I did?
I loved it.
I like the tournament, the little Mortal Kombat tournament.
Heck
Finish
yeah.
him. Yeah.
But it's funny because I posted in the Discord actually my head canon for Jiang,
Mhm.
and it was played by Yuan Su Tian from Drunken Master. That was in my head the entire time, and reading him. And anytime she was with him, and especially after the tournament when he's like, "Okay, now I'm really gonna train you," because he does exactly the same thing to Jackie Chan in the
Yeah,
movie.
yeah, yeah.
And he's like, "Okay, now you're serious. Okay, let me teach you the ways." And it's like, "Okay, like let's go." And it's amazing that she even did so well because she comments that everyone had the exact same style because they learned
Yeah.
from the same teacher.
Mhm.
And she was like, "Oh, just target the legs or whatever, and you can really like knock him out." And I was like, "Yeah, like."
Get
Hamstrings
him.
and throat.
It's
Kill
another
like a
thing
wolf.
she fought for. Yeah, another obstacle she over. What's it called? Overcame.
Yeah. I do love that moment where she's up against the first guy and he's like, "You don't know any martial arts." And she's like, "Oh yeah."
She comes in there too, and she could tell he was nervous, this first
Mhm.
guy, and she's like, "That's what it is. He's scared. He's scared of
Mhm.
me." And she's like, "What? You've never fought a girl before or something? Or like you've never seen a girl before?" And he gets kind of flustered, and she just annihilates him,
Yep.
like
Like
not in his head, psyched him out.
done for. It was so fun. This whole like the the way that this is written is so wonderfully fast-paced and vindictive on, like,
Mhm.
Rin's part, and I like, when he slaps her and she loses it, she's like
Neza,
yeah! Like, in their fight, he slaps her. I think it says, something and Rin broke. That's all it took. It's just
well, he signed as, he after that moment, it was all her. I mean, like,
mhm,
that's what gave her the fire, I guess. And after that, it was just like she was fighting in sheer like furies of like
mhm,
fists and punches and kicks, and she was just like going for blood. Like she became totally unhinged in that moment, just out for blood almost. And it ends up her like being consumed by this fire. She
mhm,
beats Nessa, and
mhm,
afterwards, like she's getting almost like woozy, like she is kind of almost having this like out of body experience and feeling like something's wrong, and she's on
mhm,
fire, and
mhm,
she just runs, and she's
mhm,
running to Chiang, and she knows exactly where he will be. And like my heart, like I love Chiang, and him being like almost kind of like cradling her and being like, like it's okay, and she could feel like something wash over her, and it's like, okay, like more mystery shaman stuff is going to happen soon, like I can feel it.
mhm,
And after she beats Neza, like she's the one that every teacher wants to like
mhm,
sponsor, I guess. And so at that point, she can choose from any of the different um, topics. Like she has free choice. She can pick
mhm,
lore, she can pick combat strategy, whatever she wants, really, because every teacher is like, she just kicked Neza's ass. Like we want her. Like she did great in all of her tests. I
mhm.
oh I loved the question that she was asked. Who what is the What's the stone prison called? Do you remember? The
I know what you're talking about. It's the
Well,
the Karak something?
sounds about right.
Yeah.
But it's like, who's who's
Who's in
in prison?
prison?
And he's
Yeah.
like,
The
unnatural creatures who have done unnatural crimes. Like, just trying to be creative with it. I just thought that it was really cute and like really fun the way that she was like, I have no idea. I'm just going to say
mhm,
something that sounds smart, even though everyone will know that it's, not a real answer. And I was like, that was good. That was
mhm.
well done.
Yeah.
Thought on my feet.
Yeah, it's the Chulu Karak. Yep. Oh, man.
So I talked about Ren and Neza having like multiple like fighting
Mhm,
moments
mhm,
where in the first parts, they're fighting themselves, and then like once you get into like part 2, they're fighting together. And this was when the Federation of Mugen actually like makes it into Sinagar, and they're
mhm.
starting to evacuate people, and more of the military has come in, and now these students are becoming, generals.
Soldiers, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're
Yeah.
and I really, really enjoyed this whole part of the story. And like Katai had came up with these contraptions to like throw, was it boulders or logs off the walls at the incoming Mugen
It could have been both.
military.
It's Katai. He builds all kinds of things. He's a genius.
I mean, was there anything like in these chapters that really stood out to you that you guys really liked, or is it
I
just
mean, like,
me?
in the second part?
just these chapters where Synagard is under attack.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
Because that's like the big Jiang like
I
moment.
yeah, I about died when Rin and Neza are fighting together. And
Back
like
to back.
the way that that it's written, like uh they were like a well-oiled machine. They were a spontaneously coordinated dance. Like they're fighting for their lives, and because they've been fighting against each other this whole time, they know each other's weaknesses, they know each other's strengths, so they're like covering each other's backs, and they're like, maybe we'll actually get out of here. And then the big bad general arrives right on time.
Doesn't he
And
like start laughing at them and calls them puppies?
yeah, like Nakar and Scum and all that other good stuff. And like Neja and Rin make the decision that if they're they're gonna die together. And then Jiang steps in and is like, nope. It's
Well,
just so good.
well, in that moment too, like we also get some hints about things from Neza, I feel like, because he
Mhm.
gets stabbed twice, I think,
Twice in
through
the
and
stomach.
through,
Hmm.
and doesn't die.
Nope.
Doesn't die.
He's recovering somehow. Like
Hmm.
Rin wakes up and Neza's recovering.
She wakes up in prison, basically.
Yeah. But oh yeah, because that's when the Empress sees her, isn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Because well, Jiang does
mm,
his thing and
mhm,
opens the
mhm.
gates and unleashes all of these mystical creatures that should not be in this world.
Monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited for more monsters. Like, oh,
Mhm.
I hope there's more coming up and ahead. Tracy, don't nod, don't tell me.
I was being very still. I was being very still. Um, I like how after Jiang has done his magic thing and the wall collapses and everyone gets kind of like buried underneath it, Rin is not too badly injured, but she's definitely like tired out. She's trying to like find Neza. And of course, out of the rubble comes the general, and they are weakened and they are tired. And the guy, like, yes,
Do you know what this reminds me of? Like the image
tell
that I
me.
had in my head when the general like reaches out through the gravel like unhurt. It reminded me of like one of the older Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles where Shredder comes out of like
Ow!
RF
Yeah.
Kuang. If you're watching this, let me know if this was an inspiration.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
I loved it though. Like it almost, I mean, this would be like a great like anime. Like it's good.
Yeah. But I mean, his like attacking her and Neza is what like puts her in the position to call the Phoenix, like for real, for like I guess the first time as a weapon, really. Um,
Doesn't
and
she
then
take a handful of, she had taken poppy seeds, right?
I think so. Do you remember, Christian?
Yeah, I recall she took like a handful of them, and then she immediately ascended, which I loved all the descriptions. And she's
Right.
like face to face with all the gods. But she's like, just fill me with everything. She's like, okay. And she
You
does.
got it.
We don't get
Mhm.
any like word of what happens. We hear about
Mhm.
it later. And I guess the Empress, I guess, takes her out with that state. Because the last time
Yeah.
she sees it, and that's the end of part two, I think.
I was gonna ask you guys. I mean, the Empress kisses her, and I didn't know if maybe because later on, Ren can't call the Phoenix anymore,
Mhm.
and her and Alton are trying to figure out, like what the problem is, not in a healthy way, obviously. Like Alton is awful, but I mean, in my opinion, but it's open to interpretation. But when the Empress kisses her, I think like she feels something, where you get like a sense that there's something mystical about this woman. And I was like, did she just like throw like water on the fire and then like now Rin can't call the Phoenix? Like I almost thought that there was something like that happened between her and the Empress right there, but I don't know. I haven't read on. Maybe it's just a coincidence.
Yeah, that was the image I had, was water being thrown on fire. And I was just about to joke that she got stilled, or momentarily stilled. Because that was kind of the image. It's like, is the Empress like, okay, we're just going to nip it in the bud. We're never going to let her do this again. But I don't think she does it really again until the big ending. But because that takes a lot for her to finally get back into that state.
Yeah.
So
it was Vanka. Vanka told her to do it. She was like, burn them all.
And Rin was like, yep, you got it.
Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I guess like we can transition because like this is a really good part where the story switches once again. So now we move from Synagard and all of the training to Rin pretty much being like imprisoned in Synagard where they're like, you're dangerous. And then she gets sent to the psych, which is the weird children. And I adore all like every single character in the psych. Like they're so cool. I love them. It was so much fun. Does anyone want to explain like what the psych is? Just like background?
all they are to me is X-Men. That's the only. That's the simplest way to explain them.
Yeah.
Each of them have special powers. We have one who can turn into a gorilla and has like infinite strength. He's my favorite.
I loved Suni.
One's like a pyrotechnic and loves lighting things on fire.
Like, was that Ramza?
I think so.
I need to look at the list, but oh my gosh.
One eye.
Cute.
Yeah.
And the others I don't really know that well. I'm looking at the list.
Baji is the boar god. Baji calls the boar god. Kara can like telepathically communicate with hawks, like birds. And she has a brother, Chegan, and he is kind of like, I mean, how would you explain?
He's kind of like
Dr.
He's almost like head shaman guy in some ways. Like he always seems kind of connected to it. But like his abilities are kind of slowly revealed. Like there's kind of this question mark around what he can do, I think, until closer to the end of the book, maybe.
He can like just walk into the pantheon of the gods. Like
he doesn't need to be he doesn't need to be doped up to do it. He can just do it. And because of that, he has like the ability to go to different places than Rin's able to access when she goes in the pantheon or whatever. So, and I think, isn't he really good with a bow too? Like he's a fighter as well.
Yeah.
I remember he was shooting them as they were charging in, and Ren was lighting things on fire. If I remember right. It's been about a month since I finished, but
is it Unigan as well?
Is he the water guy?
I think is he like the one that doses them?
The physician?
Yeah. I might have to look it up. The name, it's hard. It's kind of hard with these names, especially like coming from like my white American background, trying to remember these names. But I did like how, yeah, they all have their specific powers. This a very minor critique, but I wanted to see them, like all of the fight scenes that Rin got with, Neza and just throughout the book. When we get to the psych, I was really hoping that we would get like a super intense, detailed, drawn out battle so that I could see all of them doing their superpowers. Like I wanted like focus on each one, so I got to see like battle scenes and what they were capable of. But it kind of like there were little bits of it here and there.
Yeah,
But
that was definitely. Oh, sorry.
No. Go ahead. I was
I
just
was
gonna
gonna
say.
say. Oh.
I was hoping there's gonna be more. Yeah.
Okay, so I definitely agree with you because that was the one part I don't really remember much about because it was so fast. I thought, and this book's already really fast. I thought going from the original village that Ren was at, where she was living at as the merchant assistant, and then going to synagogue, and then going to here, going to here, going to here. It was like so many, like this could definitely be a trilogy, but she is so well paced on everything. And this was the one weakness I thought about the book was the psych, because I remember the Gorilla Man, I remember Fire Ren, and a little bit of the brother and sister, but that's really about it. And I definitely wish we had a huge battle, kind of merge it with when the Mugen came in, just merge it with the psych, like, and then she gets recruited or something. I don't know, but I don't really remember them that well.
Yeah, I have a hard time. I mean, I wrote down the names, and before like we got started, I was going to look up each one, but then I got sidetracked looking up something else. So I was like,
I'm scared to Google anything.
yeah, me too. There's also like this time with the psych. I really liked when the shapeshifter shows up. This creature that can take the faces of people that it's killed. And I liked this time with, okay, so at this point too, Neza has showed up with the 7th Division, and June is there as well. Oh God, June. Can't get away from this guy. But I thought that was nice, like Neza coming back into the story and them kind of finding this common ground. Like it was a nice kind of way to put like a new they got off to a new relationship. Like they're now like not enemies anymore, and they're like hardened, soldiers. And it was kind of like it was endearing, and I'm like, okay, like I like Neza now. Like I want to see more of him, and I want to know like what his powers entail, because he keeps ending up being pretty much like left for dead somewhere, and suddenly like he's okay again and
again and again.
Yeah, so I'm expecting some type of healing or like regeneration or something. Like I don't know with Neza. Because too, who was it? Someone in the psych pulls Rin aside and was like, "You're not going to talk to Neza anymore." And I think that might have been Alton. And someone else had previously been like, "You're friends with this shaman kid?" And she's like, "Neza's not a shaman." And he's like, he's wearing the symbol of something on his like jacket or whatever. And she's like, "That's his family crest, okay?" And I'm like, there's something going on with him.
That interaction with the monster that I assume Jiang released
Yeah.
on accident. I'm curious what Neja saw it. because we get the POV from Ren, and she sees her little brother, I think,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and she's
Yeah.
like, "Wow, I haven't really sent a letter or anything." Like, and
Mhm.
then she's about to get like her face eaten off, and that whole scene when they bring in the shipment of like supplies and they bring the entire town in it and it
Mhm.
blows up, like, oh my gosh.
The saltpeter. Oh,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, I was I was not ready for that.
No,
Mm-mm.
that
I
it was
thought they
so
were surrendering.
abrupt. Yeah.
I should have known there were two more books in this series.
Yeah. That I mean, and that too, like, after that happens, they kind of put things together and realize that is it Gollum Nice, the city that they're located
Nice.
now, is not the actual target, and they head to I'm trying to think of the name of this next city, but this other city is basically like the main target where Mugen has, played their cards really well and disguised the
Mhm.
fact that they're attacking on a different front because
Mhm.
everyone thought that this other location okay, I think is
It's
it
Coeur d'Alene, isn't it?
Coeur d'Alene and
Mhm.
Golan is the one that's being attacked,
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
real, location, and just the description we get as they are taking the boat in,
Mhm.
it's just a sea of dead bodies, and they're that far away from the actual city that I had this sinking feeling in my gut where it was like, as soon as they talk about how many dead bodies are floating in the water, like, it was like there was no more water anymore. They were just on a sea of corpses,
Mhm.
and they're not even in the city yet. So it's like, this is not going to be good. Like, I'm getting goosebumps when I talk about it because I'm just like, ooh, like,
Horrific.
yeah, like just that like complete dread on my behalf where I was like, oh man, like,
Mhm.
but at the same time, it was like, I have to keep going. Like, I need to know what happened. And this
Mhm.
is when we get this big moment that has all of the historical
Mhm.
context to it, which
Mhm.
I know, Tracy, you definitely wanted to talk about a little bit.
I mean, really, because it's so similar to like what actually happened, I feel like we can just talk about Golden Nice. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, like what I said at the start is kind of all I really wanted to touch on without doing an entire documentary about this.
Yeah.
Like there are so many layers to what happened here and why it happened and how it happened. And they are very much like
Mhm.
replicated from real life. In particular, the way that the
Can I just
Muganese.
can I just,
Please.
like, give up a little, like, I don't know, trigger warning, spoiler warning, because, like,
Oh,
it's very I mean, genocide, rape,
rape.
murder, like, anything awful, war crimes, it's all of this. So,
It's
yeah,
bad.
if you don't wanna, hear about this, I understand. You can fast forward later or something, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Pause for a little bit or whatever.
Yeah.
Um the some of the things in particular that are real, including the comfort houses where they took women to be like repeatedly raped and abused. That was a real thing. Um Contests to see who could like behead the most people in a specific amount of time really happened. Like it's just terrible. It's just terrible.
And this is what the Federation did to every single
Yeah.
person in this city, and I mean, it's a very large city, so
Mhm.
they show up and it's just and they had even, like, the way that they had stacked bodies up and, like, body
Mhm.
parts, like, they had fun with it, like, they
Yep.
made it
A game.
a game, yeah,
Mhm.
like, throwing babies up and just cutting babies, like, up in the air, like, it's
Yep.
just it's like gut-wrenching to read, and at the same time, it being within this fantasy setting,
Mhm.
like, it makes it I feel like you're able to approach the conversation in a way that's easier, maybe.
Mhm. Mhm. No,
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that's the power of fiction, is you can take something this brutal and give it just a layer around it to be able to kind of touch it without it burning your soul.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the thing that really shows up in both the real world and in the fiction of this story is how often othering takes place. So, like, the Muganese see the Nakaran as less than human. So, when you see something as less than human, it doesn't hit you quite the same way, I would assume. I have no idea. Than it would be if you like saw them as actual people, if you didn't think that you were doing, oh god, that you were doing a favor by exterminating this group of people, you know. And that was what happened between Japan and China. Japan's men were conscripted, they were trained, they were basically brainwashed to believe that they were going after people who weren't people, they less than human. So what they did, god, I just can't.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the scary thing too, because like even though this happened in our past, it's not like our distant past.
No.
And I mean, it's taking place now. Like where
Mhm.
there is war, there are things like rape. Like it humans can't learn, I guess. Like the story is repeated, and yeah, it's one of those topics. It's a heavy one, but
Mhm. Yeah, it's like, I don't know what's worse, finding Vanka or finding Katai and Golan Nice. Like,
for
what
me it was
happened.
Vanka. I mean, hands down. Like I Vanka was a character that I really just did not like. I mean, I I had hatred towards Vanka just for how awful she was.
Mhm.
And it was only because like she, her friendship with Neza was so strong that Neza
Mhm.
had a problem with Ren, so Vanka just took it out on her. And after we learn through Rin like what happened to Vanka, I was just like, I had never like done such a fast turn in how much I didn't like a character to how much I just wanted to comfort a character and hold them, and like I would kill for you, Venka. Like I would do anything for you. Like you show me. Like I would go after them. And that's what she asks of Rin. And so
Mhm.
like as awful of the things that Rin does in the end of the book, it's still relatable. Like I understand like where she came from. I don't think she, how do you justify genocide? You
Right.
can't, but
Mhm.
you can understand what made her kind of like put her in this position, I guess. And that's like the whole story is just like all of these things keep happening and it snowballs. And yeah, Ren's story is, I mean, it's complex, but it's
Mhm.
also, she starts out as this very sympathetic character,
Mhm.
in my opinion, anyways.
What about you, Christian?
Um, yeah, I think the moment in the city was a turning point for me
Mhm.
because up until this point, I hadn't thought about the rape of Nanking
Mhm.
in many, many years because I guess it was compartmentalized to try and just not be, touched by fire, I guess,
Hmm.
Mhm.
get burned in my soul. But reading those descriptions of everything that happened, it just brought me right back to reading the, I guess, real accounts
Mhm.
of what happened then. I was like, oh my gosh, like, because I remember she, rfkuang was a Asian studies major
Mhm.
or working on PhD for that. I was like, oh, I know, she's going to use, actual events as like, I guess, set pieces to explore these themes.
Mhm.
And when that happened, I was like, everything just rushed in. I was like, now I know like why this book is so highly regarded
Mhm.
because it's so well done. It kind of reminds me of reading the battle scenes from Robert Jordan's books
Mhm.
because there's just that realness in the
Yeah.
writing of it.
And
So
and too, like that's really interesting that you bring that up because she studies military history.
Mhm.
And then like you have someone like Robert Jordan who lived it.
Mhm.
And they both come from like different aspects of that, one living it and one researching it, but they're both executed like brilliantly, like where it's
Mhm.
like it's great. And I
Mhm.
mean, it's impressive.
Yeah, I think she actually used stories from her grandparents,
Hmm.
Like she had family that remembered this and may have been close to experiencing it as well, and it's so scary to think about because it was so horrible. So horrible.
those
Yeah.
the because after this we get the whole medical factory, and that I think a lot more people know about than the
Mhm.
rape of Nanking. So I know in my high school, because that was God, 2015 is when I graduated high school, so it's about 7 years ago, and it's pretty soon. And not many people in my school even knew about it, and I don't
Mhm.
think it was really touched on.
Mhm.
So I'm sure there was people who didn't think that high school students should be exposed to that, but
Eastern
I did
history
it on
gets
my own.
neglected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And the medical experiments, I think we touched on a lot more than the rape of Nanking
Mhm.
or Nanjing. So it
Well,
was
yeah,
just interesting to think about,
people
high
are
school.
monsters.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Should we bring it back to a different topic then?
Sure, sure.
Okay.
I might need it. My chest is like, God.
There,
Okay.
so I mean, it's not as lighthearted, but I did really like this moment where after everything goes down in Golan Nice, that I think it's afterwards, her and Alton have to go to the Chula
All right.
Karak, um, because they need to go there and basically find some more X-Men, I guess.
Some more
Some
X-Men.
more X-Men.
Yes.
And they get there,
Mm.
and I just really, really loved the description of them kind of like coming into this like magical, is very Lord of the Rings, by the way, kind of like them going through this mountainside and coming up to this like secret mystical place and going into the mountain and trying to release these people that have, I mean, how would you explain it? Like why they're imprisoned there besides unnatural creatures who have done unnatural crimes? Like, how would you, I mean, is there a good way to describe it? Like why these people are there?
The way that I think of it is that the shamans, after touching the gods so often, like their trajectory is death and madness or imprisonment, like
Hmm.
forever. And because once you've touched the god so many times, it it can disrupt your connection to your mortality, if you will. So at some point, you can't die and you will just go mad and start killing everyone and everything around you. And the only solution is to be imprisoned in the Chulu Correct. Yeah, I think that's how
Well done. Thank
Thank
you.
you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so impressed with myself. I remembered stuff.
Christian, do you have any theories on what's going to happen with this angry wind god that just gets released when they're in there?
That was the one who got away and they didn't see him or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming he flew away. That's the only way.
I mean, he's a
Because
wind
there's
god.
hundreds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think
Weird,
he's going to
swam
show
away.
up? Like, is this going to be, I feel like, a plot point for book 2, maybe?
I'm thinking at some point, maybe in the final book, everyone's just going to get released. And it's going to be a bunch of factions. Like, that's the only way I can see the story going.
Interesting.
Different gods are going to link up with each other.
So
like
more
a
the
battle of
X-Men.
gods more than people.
And I loved how Jiang was in there, and they released him. It's like, Jiang, you're back. And he's like, I'm done.
I don't want to be back.
He's like,
I don't
lock
want
me
to be
up.
back.
Close the door. I'm not leaving this mountain. This just makes me love him so much more. He's like, don't care, bored staring at a wall for thousands of years. I'll do it. I don't want out back in like humanity. I can't.
Poor guy.
I have to wonder, is there a whole nother set of gods, like different from these, like a Lovecraftian edition of these gods?
I would love that.
I hope there is. I hope there's like a negative flip side or side of the coin from these, because they're not wholly bad. I mean, I guess it's debatable, but
and too, it's interesting that like certain people of different heritage have like different connections to certain gods. So like on the other side of the world, are there people that like have like, are there pixies? I mean, what's going on? Like, is this world only, yeah, like is there like some Lovecraftian god out there? Ooh, I like that idea a lot. I don't know.
I
I
like
like
to
all
pretend like I haven't read the other 2 books.
Yeah, you're doing so good.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Okay, I'm gonna.
We have like the Chulukarike, and we find out that we cannot indeed have an army of shamans. No
ShamWows.
shamans for you. No ShamWows for you. Take your ShamWow and shove it. But
I'm muting myself.
Why? I'm trying to remember. Okay, so we have Jiang asking to be like resealed, right? And then Rin and Alton, sorry. Where do they head off after that?
They go to the island, don't they?
Yes.
They go with the Pia, and Alton holds them off while she leaves.
Yeah.
Like swims across the ocean.
They get captured. They get captured as they're exiting the mountain, and then they're taken to the the scientific torture research institution.
And that's also based on a history thing. I think it's like something 731.
And then, like you said, Alton holds them back and has like this last sacrifice, I would say. And that way, like, Rin can get away, and Rin swims forever and ends up on the Spear Islands. Where
she and Alton are the last of the Spear Leaves.
So this is a question that I hope gets answered, is how she survived. Like, how did she survive and end up with the fangs as a
Mhm.
adopted child?
Like
Because
war orphan.
mhm,
Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause I mean, there were only I mean,
it's two. There's only two
yeah, there's
survivors.
only 2 survivors. So how like, everyone just assumes that all the Spearleys are dead. And
Mhm.
we've got Atlan who's like, "Nope, I'm here." And, like, when Rin first shows up, he, like, is almost in awe of her presence, like, "I thought I was the only one. Like, where did you come from?" Like, he has kind of the same reaction too, like, "How is this possible?" Um,
You know what I'm so glad that they did not do? I'm so glad that they did not make them like, "We're the last two Spearleys, we're gonna be lovers now." Like,
yeah.
thank you. Like, I'm
"Let's
so glad
mate!"
that yeah. Someone even makes a joke about it. They're like, "Oh, you're gonna repopulate the Spearly
Mhm,
people," and Rin's like, "I can't because I sterilized myself, so she can't have kids." So
mhm,
this is another one of those examples of Rin doing like anything to be on top, where like she sacrifices like her I guess if she had wanted to have children in the future, like that is no longer an option because at the time she was like, I need to be the best student I can possibly
mhm.
be to get ahead here. So won't be needing that. Thank you.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like no like she's 100 like percent just like I, I don't know. I don't know if she's okay with it, but I think she's also like misinformed because the people in her school aren't really like explaining like what exactly is happening, and
Mhm,
they're not like letting her really like think about it. They're like, "Oh, this is a great idea. Like, yeah,
mhm,
like come back, we'll do it to you." Like in and out, you know?
mhm. Yep. The physician was like, "I usually encourage all of the girls to go through this
Mhm.
procedure. They should make it mandatory."
Oof. Yeah.
Ow, come on, guys.
Yeah. But this is just I mean, I think it speaks to Ren's like naivete where I
Mhm,
mean, she doesn't know any better. She's a child. Like
mhm.
she's a child
They
and
kind of all are.
well, yeah, yeah.
Mhm,
I mean, this only happens because she gets her first period. So, like,
mhm.
she's young. She's
Yeah,
very young.
and she didn't
And
understand what was happening to her,
no,
poor
she's like,
thing.
I'm dying. Someone help me.
Mhm,
And they're like, well, what if I told you that you didn't have to deal with this every month? And she's like, okay. But, like, it's not an informed decision.
"For the low cost of your womb,
Yeah,
you can have this medicine."
yeah,
It's so bad.
yeah. So, yeah, sorry. I kind of like I'm
Mm,
kind of jumping all around here. But yeah, when
I
she
don't mind.
I do kind of want to like talk about what happens when she gets to the Spearly Islands though, because
Mhm.
that's when she is able to call the Phoenix, and that moment is just like yeah, that's rough.
And she's being warned against it. Like, there's always this woman when she
This one
approaches.
goddess of
Yeah,
something that's
and
like
she's like, "Get away, stay
the Phoenix,
away."
yeah, the Phoenix takes and takes and
Mhm.
takes. And
Yep.
Ren, I mean, it's just like, okay, so like deeper Ren discussion here, but is it just possible that she's like been beat down so many times and like just she got to the point where it's like this is the only rationale I can make, like it's either people keep suffering and suffering and suffering, so I just have to like snap my fingers and poof, like every single man, person, and child from Mugen is just dead.
Mhm.
like, is that it? Is that the only option that she could like fathom at that point? Like, had she just given up? Because like I know like this is, this is not the moral choice, but after everything that had happened to Rin, like, is there anything else she could have done? Like, what?
Not wiped out Mugen?
Yeah. I mean, for her story to go on, like, she has to kind of become this tyrant, I think. And I can't picture her story going in any other direction.
Mhm.
I mean, it could mirror Alton, where like at the very end there's that last act of sacrifice, but
Mhm.
I don't know.
What do you
I don't
think,
know how
Christian?
she's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how she's going to continue on, and we still have 2 books left.
Right.
Like, I don't know what's coming for her. I don't know if it's going to be worse, but there's a way to maybe it's there's survivors. I don't know. Just
Mhm.
like on Spieley, maybe there are 2 survivors, and she's gonna get involved somehow to break the cycle. But I think she's just continuing
Yeah,
the
Mhm.
cycle.
maybe there are like two Muganese vacationing somewhere not on Mugen. Maybe there's still some Muganese left somewhere. I mean, like, do we know? Like, I don't know. Did she kill every single person? Maybe not. I don't know.
And there has to be more land. Like, I don't think this
Right.
entire planet has these 2 countries.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, and one question I had was that Phoenix statue that she did the, I guess, power up at.
Hmm.
Was that just for the Phoenix, or like are there others all around the world that she has to go to each one? And like,
Yes.
I have no idea where this is gonna go.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I'm very curious to see how that works. Like, why are some cultures more connected to one god? Why are
Mhm.
some people like Sunni? He's like, well, I just got the monkey god because that's what I got, you know?
Mhm.
It's kind of interesting, and I want to see like those topics explored more. I mean, because I find them interesting, and
Mhm.
I also want more monsters. Like, more monsters. More magic, more monsters,
Mhm.
more combat.
Mhm.
I want
Yeah.
because towards the end of the book we get the 7 prophecies,
Mhm.
Yes.
and I haven't looked back since reading it, finishing the book. But I
Mhm.
wonder how many of those came true, or whether it's not even like satisfied yet, and she
Mm.
thinks it's done because she lists off 2 of them. I think about I can't remember, but she says 2 of them are fulfilled, and I don't think that's the case. And I don't know who that woman is that
Okay.
keeps coming into her head.
Yeah, that's
Like,
another mystery. Who is she? Like, is she
is it the
the
Empress? I don't know.
yeah, yeah. That's another mystery too. Like, I need to know more about the Empress, and yeah.
I think I think it's actually yeah, it's actually revealed at the end that the woman is Tirza, the uh the ruler of Spear when it came under attack. Like she was part of the legend of like the Red Emperor and what happened on Spear. Um and like there were those stories like either she killed herself or somebody killed her, but she was trying to
The
end the
name
Phoenix's power.
the name sounds familiar to me, but
Mhm. Well, I think like her story is actually kind of revealed during like the academy time when they're like going through history lessons and they're learning about it. I think she gets kind of like a little bit worked into it. I think that's another like little critique, because there is so much in this book. I feel like, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I feel like there could be like additional narration and whatnot throughout it that like makes
Or
you
at
feel a
least like
little
a
bit
little
more,
glossary.
yeah, like just something to make you
Footnotes.
feel kind of like connected without getting spoilers or ruined for anything. So I don't know, like some of the concepts seem to be introduced really, really quickly, and so it doesn't all like coalesce as easily as it could, I
No,
guess.
I'm glad you say that because like I loved the book,
Oh
but it's
yeah.
like it's hard for me to find something to critique. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad like to actually find something, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And I mean, pfft, first book out, you made it too fast paced. How dare you?
I know, right? How dare I be like page turning so fast,
Exactly. Yeah. Like flew through it. Flew through it.
Just means
Um,
the reread is going to be amazing.
right? Yeah,
My favorite part of fantasy is the reread. I reread
going
all the
back.
books I have,
yeah.
so
When I have time, I try to.
I want to look at some of the reading group discussion questions. I don't
Sure.
know. I mean, I want to go on for maybe like 15 minutes or so and then call it a day.
I love
But
that.
I mean, Christian, was there a certain one from these discussion questions that you like specifically like really liked, or was there one that you know like you want to focus on?
um, kind of. I think number 3, which is what track would you pledge as a student? I think
Ooh,
that's a
that's a
fun
fun
one.
one. Yeah.
Like that would be a fun discussion one. So not super heavy, and so I
Yeah,
think we've
let's do
covered a
that.
lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that one.
End on a high note. That sounds
Yeah.
great. Yeah. Hmm.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah,
Sure.
I have to think.
I would definitely choose either the strategy or the lore. I'm
Mm-hmm.
leaning lore just because I love magic and I want Jiang as my teacher forever and always,
Yeah.
craziness
Always
included.
and forever.
Love it.
No, I would definitely, I'm the exact same answer. I mean, combat, I wouldn't because I can't. But
No,
um
June.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he'd be like, "What are you, a peasant?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, I am. All right, next. Who wants me?" Um, but just the military strategy, I like how it's so like philosophical,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's not it's like a puzzle, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, and that's what makes it fun for me, and I guess that's why I liked reading those chapters so much because I was just like, "Ooh, I feel like I'm learning so much," and they're put in all
Mm-hmm.
of these theoretical situations and have to, like, work their way out of it, and I loved how it was kind of like group discussions, and it felt like you were really in the classroom because one person would say one thing, and then the
Mm-hmm.
next person would raise their hand and be like, "No, you can't do that because then this would happen," and they
Mm-hmm.
kind of, like, go through all of the different ways to find your way, like, out of the situation, and
Mm-hmm.
I just found it really fascinating and fun, but
Mm-hmm.
again, like, yeah, I would probably choose lore if Jiang would have me, you know, like, if I had a special talent, like, yeah, sure. I don't know how much fun I would have, like, carrying a pig up a mountain, but
And back down. And
yeah,
back down.
but if I
Up
was
and
his
down.
student, I would do it, you know? Anything for Juang?
It
I
definitely
love
makes Ren strong.
I love how for the strategy there is no silver bullet for any of the solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have
Yeah.
to take into account everything. And I love that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
which is just trying to find that edge for
Yeah.
a
Mm-hmm.
question or
It's just like
something.
it's like a never-ending conversation. It's like
Mm-hmm.
there never seems to be like an end point to it. So it's like you could study it your whole life and never like find the answer to every single question. And I think that's like fascinating.
Mhm. This won't come as a surprise. I would pledge history. 100% will always be my favorite,
Is that
even
an
in a
option?
fictional series. It is, it is. It's one of the classes offered. I had
You're
to double
lying just
check.
so you
No!
can choose it. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I mean, don't put it past me, but this time I'm not. No, there's combat, strategy, history, weaponry. Weaponry would be a really fun one too.
Yeah.
Linguistics, medicine, and lore are the courses that you can pledge at Synagard.
Okay. Another very small critique. Like, I would have loved more, I mean, time with each of them. Like, it would have
Like the
been
various
cool.
courses.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But I mean, then we probably would have spent like another like 200 pages in the school setting, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly didn't remember any of them except for linguistics, law, and combat. I would have chosen history as my number two.
Okay.
but, but I love strategy too because it also kind of uses history. Like, oh, that didn't
Mhm.
work here, but over here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know. So
Yeah. For me, it's like what Amber had said about strategy. It's you can just go deeper and deeper and deeper into it, and asking the right question can lead to various answers you may not have been aware of before. And bit of a history fan, just tiny, tiny, tiny bit. So.
Should we end it there and maybe
Sure.
talk about, or I guess, I mean, you've finished the series. I'm definitely going to finish it at
Mm-hmm.
some point. Do we want to do this for the next book of the series later on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like another live
Okay.
stream?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Okay.
in my brain I'd already signed on for that.
Okay, good. Anyone
Yeah.
in, yeah, if anyone watching finds us, you know, somewhere down the YouTube rabbit hole and you want a nice little book club to read books with and talk about things, we are, like I said earlier, we're going to read Babel in August.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, find our Discord and a link somewhere around the YouTube channel.
We'll
And
be doing Caliban's War in 2 weeks,
yes,
right? That's our
yes.
next one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, The Expanse. Ooh, that's such a good one. Christian,
Mm-hmm.
are you gonna be finished by then?
I've got 100 pages, I think, of book one, and then I have book two right above me on display. Uh,
Yay!
I
I
haven't picked
love
up book
it.
three yet. I thought
Yeah.
y'all were
Okay,
on book two, so I thought I would make it, but I'll make it for four. So
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds good.
and Babel, of course.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
okay,
excited about all of that.
thanks for joining us,
Mm-hmm.
Tracy, Christian. Thanks everyone for
Thank you.
being here, and that's a wrap, I guess, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
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 All right. I said end stream. Just going to double check in YouTube that it also ended there.
If not,